what activities could you engage in at that time to strengthen your Jewish identity? And when you did so, what was the response of the Soviet authorities?
Look, no Jewish activities were legally permitted. If you, as a student, finally, I was admitted to a university, but if I would come to the synagogue, they would immediately fire me from university. As far as I worked as a carpenter, you can be a carpenter, but the moment you become an engineer, you cannot permit yourself to go to synagogue or have underground classes in Hebrew, for it is already dangerous. I mean, just to visit a synagogue, not that dangerous. You will simply lose your job. But if you are a part in underground classes studying Hebrew, it's already considered a crime, and you can be put in a prison for that. Not for a long time, no more than 5-7 years, but still you have to take care. If you are willing to get involved in Jewish activities, you have to know that it has its price, that finally you will be arrested for that. It's why the majority of the Russian Jews prefer to sit back and try to not to be involved in any Jewish activities. And as I told you, the only way to forget being Jewish is to get assimilated, intermarried, and forget being Jewish. It's the majority, as we know, it's pity to admit, but 70 years of Soviet oppression and this kind of anti-Semitism that wouldn't permit you to be Jewish from one hand and wouldn't permit you to forget that you were Jewish from another hand, brought to this final situation as even at my time, it was already 70% of intermarriages among Jews and non-Jews. Again, the way to escape your Jewish identity, you needed be really courageous or maybe stupid to go on this way to look to be a Jew. You know, why the reason at all I should become Jewish, why I need Jewish education and Jewish identity. I prefer better to have Russian identity, but they wouldn't permit me to be Jewish. You know, it is the paradox. From one hand, they don't permit me be Jewish, for there is no Jewish educational institution, and if you start studying something illegally, you will be punished for that. From another hand, they wouldn't permit you to say in our ID, in our passport, we had this clause of nationality, and you have to admit that you are Jewish. It's so-called the fifth paragraph. The moment they open your ID, it's written there Jewish. So why you pretend being Russian? You are Jewish. From one hand, you cannot be really Jewish, for you get no Jewish education. And I was educated as regular Russian citizen. From another hand, they don't permit you forget being Jewish. So you needed really a lot of courage to get involved in this kind of illegal activities. It's ironically to admit, so just to study Hebrew language or some Hebrew tradition, you need a lot of courage. And the majority of people, as normally, you know, people are not that courageous to sacrifice their life and their private interest for this issue. They better prefer to sit back, not to do anything, forget, make other people forget that you were Jewish.
Okay, but Yosef, you didn't forget. So the question is, how did you cross that line? I remember back in the mid-1960s, you were involved in fixing up the Jewish graves and the areas of Nazi massacre of Jews. So how did you cross that threshold?
You know, to speak generally, I can't explain it. I will immediately answer your question, but why I specifically crossed the line, I'm pleased that I did it, but logically I can't explain. I was a student in university. I could accomplish my studies, became an engineer, to marry a Russian girl, to change maybe my family name, and as the majority. Why I wouldn't do it, I don't know. But again, what happened actually is that there was a Zionist underground movement since the revolution in 1917. There were, as you know, in Russia, before 1917, there was some 300,000 active members of Zionist movement. People dreamt in Russia to come to Israel and build Israel. As you know, the majority of the settlers in the end of the 19th century, in the beginning of the 20th century, were people from Kharkiv, from Odessa, from Kishinev. There was strong Zionist movement in Russia before it became Soviet. So then they established Zionist underground. And since that time, in 1917, we got a prisoner of Zion. I was mentioned here as a refusenik, which is not true. I am not a refusenik, I am a prisoner of Zion, meant that if you are involved in the activities and you got arrested for their activities, you became a prisoner of Zion, or how you call it. Anyway, as we say in Hebrew, Asir Tzion. So I was astonished to discover that I was not the first one. And there we have a very known activist, Anatoly Sharansky. He was not the first one. There were people since 1917, 1918 that started being continued to be active. And it happened that after the Holocaust, I was born after the Second World War. I met people that were active in the Zionist movement before me, as the very known activist David Havkin from Moscow, or Yosef Harol from Kharkov. So when they served their time in the 50s, and when they got released in the 60s, as they told me later, they told me, we discovered that also we have already our Jewish state, people, young people, got assimilated. He told me, we look for a way to prevent the assimilation, and we felt that the first decision we have to make to establish places that people can meet. You know, we had no communities, we had no youth centers, Jews never met. And it's the simplest reasons that people intermarry. So they created, as David Havkin told me, they created, it was in the 60s, they created two places that can attract us. One is the synagogue. Also, we were all atheists, unreligious, anti-religious, but it was a rumor that Jewish youth can meet in the synagogues. You can see the known photographs as some 50,000 Jews coming to meet at the synagogue, the first Israel ambassador, Golda Meir, and the same existed in Riga as well. When I was told by friends that there is a possibility to meet Jewish girls and Jewish boys in a synagogue, from the beginning, I felt uneasy. I have nothing in common with religion, but still I came to be just to meet friends, and it was beautiful there. For the first time, being in the yard of the synagogue, in street close the synagogue, I felt Jewish. I was like other. I had no more the need to conceal my Jewish origin. And then I started going to the synagogue, and I created my friends. That's how I got involved. It means it was not by myself. It was established by the former prisoner of Zion, the generation of prisoner of Zion before of me. And then they announced, and it was not specifically in Riga, as we know, in Babi Yar and in Minsk, in all the places that Jews were massacred, the Soviet authorities wouldn't do anything. They denied the fact that Jews were massacred. So the prisoner of Zion, the previous generation of prisoners of Zion, decided that it will be another place to meet us. And they announced that in Riga, we have a notorious place called Rumbula, where in total more than 50,000 Jews were exterminated. For the beginning, it was really on Hanukkah, on some 1941, that 28,000 Jews were killed there, massacred during several days. So we came there, and it was just a field, a place completely forsaken. Nobody would care. Imagine it was already 1965, some 25 years passed after this terrible massacre. The Soviet government never would take care on it. It was like a place for people to rest, it was outside the city. So we started building with our own hands. The government was not interested us coming there, and they try to warn people never go involved in this activity. Means to just to reconstruct and establish the place of Jewish massacre was considered illegal and criminal. So again, some people were afraid to go, and mostly young people start coming. It took several years until the end of the 60s, we had already 300 Jewish boys and girls coming every Sunday to rebuild this cemetery. And it happened exactly what the former prisoner of Zion figured. When we met, we felt connected again back to our Jewish past, and start thinking what we can do to prevent this, that these things that happened during the Holocaust, that our enemies would kill us. What should we do to prevent it? And it was obvious to me and for other friends that the only way is to escape and to go to our independent country, the state of Israel. And by the way, it played another role. As I told you, they figured that it would be a place that girls and boys can meet, and we met. You know, I didn't met my girl. You know, it is not that easy to meet, but it is a paradox. You know, young people are meeting where not in a youth center. They are meeting on a place of massacre, and it itself serves as a place of survival. So for example, my sister met my friend there, and they have already grandchildren here in Israel. You know, it's like a symbol that a place of massacre became for us a place of Jewish survival. So why I specifically decided to go? I had some Jewish friends that I would try to tell them come and go, and some of them would come, but most refused. They told, we have tests, exams, and then we have at a Sunday, you know, Sunday, that time there was no real weekend, only one day, one free day. So why should we go to a cemetery? We better prefer, you know, to go to see a new movie with my girlfriend, as a friend of mine told me. So it was a freedom of choice. Some people went to study for tests, for exams, and somebody would go to enjoy his time with his girlfriend. And you would ask me why I specifically decided to go to the cemetery. I don't know, but I felt that it's important. Why other people wouldn't feel that it is important, I have no answer. It is very specific, it's personal.
Okay, Yosef, now you've passed a certain line. You've joined other young Jews at the synagogue, at the cemetery, at Rumbula, fixing it up. But now you're taking another step. You joined what we would call the Soviet Jewish underground, the Zionist underground. So what was your role in that underground? And also, now that you've joined, or you're joining the Soviet Jewish Zionist underground, what made you take the step of seeking actually to leave for Israel?
Being there in this place of Rumbula, I met boys like me. I mentioned there were hundreds of them, but you always looking for somebody that will fit you. So finally, I found some boys like me, and we felt that we can simply come and dig there and build something. We have to do something more, and I suggested to establish an underground student movement, a student group, to begin with, to get more materials about Israel, and to try to learn ourselves Hebrew, and then establish underground classes. And it is what we did. And then having the group of Jewish students, we managed to find out and connect other groups. It was a real miracle, you know. When you start looking around, it looks the same Soviet Union. It's the 60s. Everybody forbidden. Everybody is suppressed and trying to play his small role as a being Soviet citizen. And all of a sudden, you find that you are not alone. All around, there are groups like mine. You know, it was beautiful. We found, again, with the help of the former prisoner of Zion, we found that there a group like this exists already in Leningrad, some 5 underground classes of Hebrew teaching and tradition in Leningrad. And then we had groups in Moscow, in Kharkov, in Kiev. All of a sudden, you feel you are not alone. You are a real movement. So we come together and we decided to establish a nationwide underground Zionist movement. Why you need this underground, why you need to be organized, for we can help each other. For example, we had in Riga, we had printing machines. That time we had no computers, and certainly all the way of multiplying were in the monopoly of the state. So the only way we could print Jewish materials was privately on the printing machines. And we had a lot of, you know what, still Latvia was an occupied territory, and it is how not that much citizen cooperated with KGB. So it was more quiet. Imagine me sitting in my room, in my apartment, printing something. The printing itself make a terrible noise, and it will attract my neighbors, and they will get interested. Why Mendelevich is printing something? He is not a journalist. He is not a scientist. Why he had at all this printing machine? Immediately they would inform to police or KGB, and they will search and find everything. So it was a quiet play. From another hand, we needed funds. You know, you, Glenn, know it better, that even being spiritual and idealistic, you need money to develop your activities. You look for funds. So we found people in Georgia, Georgia, that were ready to help us with money. And then we looked for materials. We needed more materials about state of Israel, about Jewish tradition. We can get it in Moscow, for there were Jewish activists, not that much Zionist, Jewish activists trying to improve or establish communism with human face. They were Jewish. And in Moscow, you had the possibility to contact foreign journalists. In no other place, we wouldn't have this possibility. Only in Moscow they had foreign journalists, and the foreign journalists would pass over some books on Israel or maybe some Jewish tradition. It just to describe and explain why we needed this kind of cooperation. Also, we were aware that having this organization, it became even more dangerous. For the moment, the KGB will find a certain group, they will easily come to another group and arrest everybody. But we had no way out. It is why the older and more experienced friends suggested not to have this kind of organization, just to call it as a coordination committee. So it means to coordinate, not to be an organization, just to coordinate our activities. It means if we decided to apply or to come up with a common declaration and pass it over, say, to UN, we will collect it in different places and then pass it over to friends in Moscow, and they will pass it to the journalists. So it's kind of coordination. Or, for example, we had in Sverdlovsk a copy machine called ERA that could print at once maybe 1,000 copies of Jewish Russian textbook. So they would print and send this over to different places. It's how we coordinated. Never we had a real organization, for it was dangerous. And one of the functions was to publish a magazine to inform the Jews in Soviet Russia, specifically members of our movement, what is going on in terms of the struggle for the freedom of Soviet Jewry and what kind of Jewish holidays do we have. So I was appointed an editor of this magazine. For somehow I managed to learn a lot for the time being since I started my involvement, and I could contribute. As well, we established like an underground printing house in Riga, again using the better possibilities to escape from the eye of KGB. So I was somehow involved in collecting materials as an editor and printing, and then sending over to Russia. It is, ironically, we would print some maybe 100 examples, 100 copies of this magazine. And it was something outstanding, We have an underground Jewish movement. We have our magazine. We can call upon a Soviet Jewry and say, what's our task? What's our problem? So it was another stage of development. But again, doing it, you start understanding how restricted you are. And 100 copies for the whole Soviet Jewry, we had at the time almost 3 million of Jews, it's nothing. Having classes, underground Jewish classes, as I mentioned, in Minsk, in Kharkov, in Vilna, beautiful. But how much students at all would come to our classes? Maybe 1,000 of them, 2,000 of them. It will not help. As I told you, the ratio of assimilation, mixed marriages, would come to more than 70%. Means imagine that out from 3 million of Jews in Soviet Russia, people of our age would maybe some 100,000, 200,000 Jews, 70% of them, 150,000 got assimilated. And we could prevent assimilation only from 2,000 Jews having the underground classes. It will not help. We can prevent in this way assimilation. The only way is to open the gate, to break through the Iron Curtain, and let my people out to become free Jews and decide on their own what they would like to do with themselves.
Okay, and Yosef, now all this is taking place against the background of the 1967 Six-Day War, where Israel won this incredible victory against Soviet-backed and Soviet-armed Arab states. So how was the Soviet press treating Israel? How did you learn about what was going on in Israel, and how would you characterize Soviet media reporting or information about Israel?
To begin with, as I mentioned, we established this student organization before the Six-Day War. So it was very important and influenced the broader population of the Jews. But us specifically, Jewish activists, for us was enough to know that we have a Jewish state. The Six-Day War, very important. But the activities, as I mentioned, started by former prisoner of Zion, even before the state of Israel got established. Understand the flame and love and the desire to be independent, to have our own state is much more stronger even than a victory in a Six-Day War. And then certainly we try to follow we had already so-called Call Israel broadcast in Russian language, in Hebrew and English. It was the Soviet authorities tried to prevent us from listening. They would, how you call it, make a
jam.
Yeah. But you know, we can move. If you have a good radio, at the time it was not electronic radio. So the moment they start block Call Israel, you move to Voice of America and then to BBC. It was a constant job just to listen and to try to put together what the information for the day. So finally, if as I told, as I say to my friends telling about it, it was almost impossible to know the true information of Israel, but it was almost people that needed badly. For us, it was possible. We had people that collected the information. Not everybody can permit himself to sit at the radio and move from Voice of America to Deutsche Welle and to Голос Свободы, but some of people invested their time, collected the information, and we did know everything in small details. Just to tell you that when sitting already in prison, being arrested, all the time I would sing the songs of the Six-Day War. It means I was able to listen and to get, I was crazy about that, you know. I love, I know I have no voice, but I love Jewish songs in Yiddish, in Russian, in Hebrew. So it just to illustrate, it was possible, you know. If you need something badly, it is possible. We did know everything. And then certainly again, the connection with foreign journalists in Moscow, they would bring books published on Six-Day War, and we would immediately republish it, translate it in Russian language, and republish it in small copies, 10, 20 copies. But when you send a certain copy or 5 copies to Kiev, they will multiply it and print more. So finally, and you know, the most, the book that really was in demand, and you know it, it was the book of Leon Uris, Exodus. You know, we were crazy about that. And when I read in 1966, or maybe I'm mistaken, in 67, the book of Leon Uris, I imagined myself already a soldier for Israel, a soldier of these illegal movements that are fighting against the British. So being in Soviet Russia, I felt already a member of Jewish fighters. You know, doesn't matter where you are in Israel and in Soviet Union, or as you, Glenn, in America. If you have the spirit of a fighter, you will fight in any place.
Okay, so now, Yosef, again, you're crossing another line. You're heavily involved in the underground Jewish movement, but now there's another step. There's this desire to get to Israel. The Soviet Union is denying immigration to almost everybody to leave for Israel, but now a plan develops. A plan develops to take an airplane out of the Soviet Union, obviously illegally. How did you join that plan?
Oh, very easy. You know, to begin with, in Leningrad, as I mentioned, we had some 5 underground groups in studying Hebrew, and one of the students was Mark Dimshitz, former Russian pilot in Russian Air Forces. He was in his 40s, still young and strong, and he met his teacher in Hebrew, Hillel Butman, and he suggested, let's, to try to make something dramatic, to attract world public opinion to our flight, to make people struggle for our release. We are slaves in Soviet Russia, but we can't permit ourselves to behave as slaves. We have to fight for it. And again, you look for fighters. So Butman went to Riga. He was familiar with Silva Zalmanson and her husband, Edward Kuznetsov. Silva was involved in my activities, for she printed the materials for our magazine. So Silva told me, you know, Yosef, Eduard Kuznetsov, that half Jewish and served already 7 years for underground activities, anti-Soviet, not Jewish certainly, but you know, we considered him as a real hero for a man that already spent 7 years in a prison, is really a hero that continue his activities. For mostly people serving the time would give up, and he continued. So he came up and told me, Yosef, I would like to talk to you. For Butman to ask him to look for people that can join the airplane. As far as Kuznetsov never met our Jewish underground, Silva told that I am a part of this underground, so he felt that I can look for necessary people, to mobilize people. And he suggested me, he told me, what do you think about the possibility to go to try to hijack an airplane? You know, you can expect if you boys and girls listening to it, if I approach you and suggest you to hijack a Russian airplane, you will certainly ask how and bring more details. I have to think about that. But I am a soldier of Israel. I don't ask questions. I told Theodore Kuznetsov, when we are going to do that, you know, and he is mentioning his book, he was astonished. He told, what? Without asking any question, you say me you are ready. I told you, Edward, it is not the first day that I am speaking about Israel. I am 7 years dreaming about that. And if you say that there is a chance, certainly, no problem, I am ready for that. So he told me, okay, so look for more friends. And certainly I approached members of our underground movement and suggested them to come to take part in this hijacking operation. And the reaction of my friends was the same as mine. I have a friend, Arya Hanoch, now living in a Balkan settlement close to Shechem. When I told him, Arya, there is a possibility to hijack a Russian airplane to escape to Israel, to make something dramatic, maybe to bring freedom to other Jews, he jumped, he embraced me, and he kissed me. He was that, I told him, like Kuznetsov told me, Arya, think again about that. It's not simple. We may be arrested. We may be killed during this attempt. He told me, it doesn't matter. If ever I would know that you did it or tried to do it and you didn't invite me, I would hate myself for all my life. Now you told me that I am part of it. You cannot find somebody that are more glad than me. Imagine, it means it was not by itself. It was an outcome of building this movement. I never went to the street to look, oh, he looks Jewish, maybe I will suggest him to hijack an airplane. It was stupid. We called upon members of our underground movement that we did know that they are strong, courageous, and they are not afraid. And it was very easy, specifically that there were two plans. The first plan was to hijack a bigger airplane with some 65 passengers. For Dimshitz felt that having hijacking the big airplane with all families. Remember, Dimshitz never suggested to hijack an airplane with people that wouldn't belong, only to have members of our movement on the board. And then imagine this aircraft would land in Sweden and tens of families would walk out, Jewish one. It would be obvious for everybody that it is the beginning of Exodus. It is not a hijacking. It's the way of our nation to open the door to freedom. But finally, for several reasons, and look more in my book, Unbroken Spirit, and other books that would mention the details of the operation, Dimshitz called us up and told that the first proposal had fallen, and I told to Edward, doesn't matter, you know, we shall continue in every way. We called Dimshitz and we told him we are ready to do whatever needed. So finally came to the scheme of hijacking a smaller airplane from a local airport close to Leningrad, and it's how we found the necessary 12 passengers. But easy, more than that. As you know, Glenn, we had even more passengers, but they wouldn't sell on more than 12 tickets, and I have to explain. Everybody knows that that time there was no way to go on flight to Israel, but as nowadays there were regular flights inside Soviet Russia. It's legal, It's like a bus, right? Everybody knows here in America, you can take a flight from New York to Washington, and it's the same in Soviet Russia. You can take a flight, and even that time, there was not awareness of security, so people wouldn't be checked. We bought all the tickets on this small airplane, all members of our underground group, and we went to Leningrad. For this small airport was next to Leningrad, to try to do whatever, understanding that it was at least my understanding that we have a little chance really to succeed and to run away, but we felt that being killed or arrested and serving time, it will be the symbol that we needed. We needed a symbol of fighting Soviet Jewry. The well-known writer Elie Wiesel, Zichrono Livracha, wrote a book, The Silent Jewry, visiting Soviet Russia in 1965. And really, that time we were silent. So our decision was to make our silent jury to speak out, to voice everybody and to tell everybody all over the world, also we are oppressed, or we are persecuted, we still exist. Am Israel Chai.
And Yosef, now, obviously nobody got to touch the plane. The KGB secret police knew everything. As you were lining up to get onto this little 12-seater aircraft with another 4 people waiting at another intermediate stop who were going to get on after you had taken over the plane and thrown out the pilot and the co-pilot. Okay, you never touched the aircraft. You were put on trial. Word finally got out to the West. I remember maybe a month or two after this. And by December 1970, you had this incredible trial we now call the Leningrad Trial of the defendants who tried to planned, never touched, but planned to take the plane. You're faced with the full might of the Soviet Union. You're in a Soviet court. You've already spent months in prison. How do you decide to behave in court?
I decided what?
How do you decide to behave in court? Do you confess? Are you defiant? How do you act in court, and why did you do that?
Then it's a good question. To begin with, you can be a fighter and a proud man, but the moment you are in the prison of KGB, the very being in the prison change your way of thinking. You are closed, alone in a cell, and you understand that that's it. Also, our scheme was to publicize our struggle and to dramatize it. We would never know whether we succeed or not. We are closed in a cell. We don't get any information, no meetings, no lawyers. Maybe everything is lost. We arrested. Everything is silent, and it's your life. So for the beginning, I was told that I expect death penalty. I thought for a while. I asked myself, maybe it was a mistake. Being in a cell in a prison of KGB, you have to have a second thinking, young, romantic, struggling, beautiful. Now everything is lost. I thought for a while, and I told, no, I don't regret. I know that if something is important for you, you have to pay for that. Sometimes with money, sometimes with your health, and sometimes with your life. To be a Jew, a free Jew in a free country is the most important value in my life. And I know for that, I have to pay with my life. And I am glad I told to myself that I was able to do that. Again, I have to admit that not everybody was enough courageous. I will continue. But for the beginning, you have the option to get a bullet in your head. So what would you do? To save your life. To save your life. And it happened. But then, a real miracle was during our trial. It was on December 24, the second candle of Hanukkah, that all friends, doesn't matter how they would behave under interrogation, now all of them declared strongly, we demand the freedom of Jews to go out from Soviet Russia. It was really a miracle of Hanukkah, for knowing and following the behavior and the conduct of other friends, I felt almost broken. Everything is lost. And then all of a sudden, the miracle happened. All of them coming together. Again, we were together, and coming together, we became again fighters, strong, courageous, and everybody declared, we demand freedom of choice for Soviet Jewry. Let our people go. And it was something unbelievable. The Russian government, the court wouldn't expect it. Broken Soviet citizens, obeying Soviet citizens after 70 years of oppression are still proud and courageous. They couldn't believe that it happens. And it happened. Again, why we did, and I specifically behaved, they put me in a mental institution during the interrogation, and they told me, why you wouldn't cooperate with interrogation? Why you wouldn't give names of people that were involved in the plot? You are not afraid of us? I told them, I am not afraid of us. I was not afraid. Why I was not afraid? As we say in Hebrew, stam kacha. I am not afraid. I believe I could be a good soldier in IDF. I had to be a soldier right there in the prison of KGB. I wasn't afraid. So they put me in a mental institution and told you are not afraid, you have mental problems. Everybody being in a prison of KGB has to be afraid. But then the big pressure of you, Glenn, and Rabbi Bivais and other friends started, and they felt that they can put me, for the beginning, they promised me, if you wouldn't cooperate, we shall admit that you are mentally ill, and we will put you for all your life in the hospital, in the mental institution. It was something, not so pleasant. It's easier to get a bullet in your head than to stay in a mental institution for all my life. But then it happened. You, Glenn, and all the friends in America start making the pressure they expected, and they felt that cannot do it. So they sent me back to the trial, understanding. And by the way, not only me, Edward Kuznetsov was strong. He was experienced, serving 7 years in the prison. He was not afraid of anything, like me and other friends. So again, it's personal, Some people got broken, but again, we selected our members of our group not by chance, not in street. They were not outsiders, members of our ongoing underground movement for years. So it's obvious, only the majority of Soviet citizens even couldn't dream. Soviet Jews in the 70s wouldn't dream that there is an underground Zionist movement. Mostly, the majority of people are not fighters, and they are fighters. I am privileged to be one of the fighters for the freedom of my nation and my state.
Okay, so Yosef, now you've crossed another line. Prison, before trial, sentence. You were sentenced to 15 years, if I remember, others to more, others less. And you're now in the Gulag. You're in this terrible, brutal Soviet labor camp and prison system. Very simple, a simple question. How do you survive? You ended up spending 11 years, thank God, after pressure, you were released after 11 years, but you were the last Jewish prisoner to be released from the trial. But how do you survive 11 years, both physically and spiritually? And the other question is,
That's true.
there were others in the labor camp system for their own nationalist or religious reasons, Ukrainians, dissident Christians, and others. Did you feel any communality with them?
Somehow, certainly, become friendly with Ukrainian champions for independence of Ukraine and with the Lithuanian fighters for the independence of Lithuania and some others. And then, you mentioned to survive. I would use a different term. I don't know how it exactly should sound in English. To survive, it means, it's no way, we have to survive. We were fighters. Even in prison, you can decide what way of life would you conduct there in a prison. To sit back, to try to survive, or to have a real life. There is an saying in Hebrew that says that in every place you have to try to be a mensch, a human being. A human being means a proud man. So when you try to survive, it's difficult. But if you try to be a proud man and have a real life, it's beautiful, For immediately when they come together, there was a small group of prisoners of Zion, this compulsory concentration camp is bigger. There are hundreds of prisoners in that, but we have a small group of Jews. We established immediately an underground Jewish organization there. So it's alive. What to do? To teach Hebrew, to teach Jewish tradition, to try keep Sabbath, to try to teach Jewish tradition, like to get some kosher food, and etc., to smuggle illegal books inside, bribing the supervisors. It's alive, it's very interesting, it takes all your time. And then certainly if, for example, we got to know that a certain Ukrainian prisoner of the young generation was upbeaten by an officer of the prison, I decided to proclaim an ongoing strike. I meant we were in a compulsory labor camp. We are compelled to work there, to be slaves, but we were not slaves. We refused to work. We told, fire this officer. We are political prisoners. We would never permit that one of our friends, he was Ukrainian, but he was a prisoner. He was a political prisoner like me. We wouldn't permit that you beat us. So it was the struggle, to come together, to make an underground meeting in a concentration camp, that leaders of all groups come together and make the decision, and then try to make everybody to take part in this strike. The whole concentration camp would strike, putting in punishment rooms, getting other punishment. It was common decision. Jews, Ukrainian, Lithuanian, dissident decided we're having a hunger strike. I just describe you the way of life, It's a real life. To fight, to have goals, to achieve the goals, friends, illegal meetings, having illegal Shabbos, beautiful. It's not survival, it's real life.
So how would you say that you grew spiritually as a Jew in those 11 years in the Gulag?
For the beginning, I became, as we say, Baal Tshuva, decided to keep a Jewish tradition before my arrest. It was like an outcome of my decision to go to Israel. I told to myself, why I'm going to Israel? Just to change Russia for Israel geographically? Not, in no way. Coming to Israel would mean for me, come back to my roots. What are my roots? Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, my grandfathers. So I have to be like them. And it was more than, as we say, emunah, belief, a decision, a logical outcome. To be a Zionist means to come back to your roots. It's how I made the decision. And certainly being there in prison, it deepened the decision made it way of spiritual development. I will bring you an example. I managed to bribe guards in a prison and smuggle inside some sacred books. So I learned by memory the prayer, Tfilah, and being in a punishment room, I could pray without, when you're in punishment room, you are almost stripped naked. You don't have anything. Staying there for a day, 2 days, week, 2 weeks, months, you can get crazy without having nothing. But I had my prayer, and when you repeat and you say your prayer in a concentration in a punishment room, it gets another spiritual dimension. You are alone, and then you say, God Abraham, God Yitzchak. You feel you are really connected. It elevates you, specifically in the hard conditions. You're looking for a link, you look for a meaning, and you got to just it in praying, in telling psalms, and then I believe I achieved the most high level of my spiritual development when announcing and prolonged hunger strike, protesting of confiscating my Jewish books. I declared that I will or die or get back my Chumash, as we say, the Bible and Psalms and prayer book, for they were confiscated as the books illegal, anti-Soviet. It was ridiculous. I thought the Bible was written before Soviet Union existed. Doesn't matter. It is against our power. It got confiscated. So with the help of Ukrainian friends, I managed to pass the information of my hunger strike to the West. And I started my hunger strike just to mention that if you don't drink, you will pass away for a week. But drinking water, it was legally, only water. You can go on for 100 days. So I remember myself sitting on the bank in a punishment room, for I was punished for having a hunger strike. The head of the prison told me, we are feeding you that you have to work. If you don't eat, your problem, but you have to work. If you have no strength to work, it's a violation of our religion, so we shall punish you and put in the punishment room. So imagine me sitting on the 40 day of my hunger strike, and I felt, like Moshe Rabbeinu. We know that on Sinai, Moshe was 40 days, and I was 40 days. Also, Torah says that he wouldn't drink. Okay, he was Moshe Rabbeinu. I am not Moshe Rabbeinu. I'm only Yosef. But I thought, what beautiful, how beautiful, I don't, I fast. I have this hunger strike, not for material goals, for something very spiritual, and I feel I don't need food at all. I'm like an angel, I don't need food. And I sit, I don't do anything. But how my being sitting there in a punishment room, having hunger strike, had a very important spiritual meaning. A Jew is fighting for his values. Certainly I felt like myself and Moshe Rabbeinu getting Torah on Sinai. So it took only 2 months. I figured 100 days, so 3 months. After 2 months, they gave up. And I believe that as my Ukrainian friend promised, he managed to pass it over to refuseniks to Moscow, and they passed it over to you, Glenn, and you start pressing and demonstrating. So after 2 months of this hunger strike, the head of the prison entered my punishment room. He was very angry. He told me, what, you continue to fight against our Soviet regime? Imagine how ironically it is, a man that for 2 months is hungering, and this big Russian guy, and he says that I'm fighting against him, and it is true, you know. So I told him, I am not against Soviet power. My goal is not to change the regime. It's up to you it's up to your citizen. I am a Jew, and my homeland is Israel, I demand only it, Give me my books away, give me to use them, and permit me to go to my homeland. It's okay. You can, if you Russian people enjoy being under Soviet regime, it's your problem. I quitted it. I am not anymore US citizen. So again, to describe you the levels of this spiritual elevation, really spiritual elevation, and the very fact that you won the struggle, it means how, a single prisoner in a prison, in a punishment room, not eating for 2 months, and all of a sudden this big Russian officer comes and give up. It's the victory of the spirit on the materialism, and I believe. Yeah,
Yosef, I have many other personal questions to ask you. However, we only have 15 minutes left, and I would love to have audience participation. And Ilya, I'd like to turn the microphone back over to you to moderate the discussion from the audience.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's unbelievable. The story is so overwhelming, and we're trying to imagine ourselves, in your shoes, and it's so extraordinary, Yosef, and it's unimaginable for us. So I have some students who are actually in Russia today, okay? Jewish students in Russia today, thinking about your experience. And I'd love for them to actually ask you the questions themselves, because it's what a pleasure, what an opportunity. So I'm going to ask Platon to jump in and ask his question about this idea about your identity. Platon, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Joseph. I just wrote a question into chat. So, do your Jewish and Russian identities really conflict with each other? So does your Jewish identity confuse you to be Russian and vice versa? Is there any conflict between these two identities?
I don't think there is a conflict. And I would tell even more. As a Soviet citizen, from my childhood, I was educated to be trustful to my motherland, understand? So I just changed this notion of motherland from Soviet Union to Israel, but it is not less important that I got this kind of education. Soviet education would teach us values. It's valuable to be strong, to fight, and to be ready to sacrifice. So it came together, my Jewish understanding and my way of education. And then, I'll tell you, right now in Israel, I teach Talmud in Russian language, for we have in our yeshiva Machon Meir a Russian department. So I speak every day Russian language. And people say, when I come to visit Russia, they would feel that I never left Russia. I love Russian language. Up to now, I have a whole library of Russian books at home, and I read them, and I can cite you by memory verses and Pushkin and Lermontov. So it comes together. There is no contradiction until we speak about common values. The common value is to be trustful to your nation, to love your nation, and to be tolerant to other nations.
Thanks a lot. I see. Thank you.
Amazing. Yosef, and Sasha Chibutareva is asking a question as well. Let's see if Sasha can unmute.
Yeah.
Alexandra. Go ahead.
Hi, I'd like to thank you for this amazing story you told us. And also have a question. I heard about the 5% rule that among all the students in the university in USSR, there should be only 5% Jewish people. And you said that you entered the university. So did you face that rule? And do you know, were there any like restrictions in professions, like you could choose only several professions or not?
Certainly. I have a friend of mine, Leah Dror, here in Israel. I'm sorry she passed away from a cancer recently. She told me that she is a very clever girl, very capable girl. So she went, the most prestigious was MFTE. I believe it is same, physical, like maybe something in America, something very prestigious. And professors try to, to lose, not to give up the exams. He did answer all the questions. So she told me, they came and told her, Leah, understand, we cannot permit you. It's this kind of profession is not permitted to the Jews. So we excuse us, we can do it. You will not enlist it. So she went in something different on a lower level. I myself tried in Riga to be admitted to a medical university. And I there were 3 exams to enter. There's old system. Physics, excellent. Chemistry, excellent. And then there was something to write about Russian literature. Certainly a Jew can't know good Russian literature. So I got less than excellent. Still, I was having the common sum of the grades equal to others. I come and ask why they wouldn't admit me to be enlisted as other students, for I got necessary sum of points. The secretary told me openly, your family name doesn't fit us. So finally, I got admitted in something minor, not that important, that I had to study in the evenings and work during the day. And okay, again, if you try hard, you can do something. But the majority had to move to small cities, to small universities, knowing that maybe there will be, there were, as we say, how you say, number of clauses, not a merit restriction, that in this specific specific specialty, only 5% of the students admitted can be Jewish. If you don't, if you're not a proper level, you will not be admitted. You have to go to smaller cities like Ryazan, Kursk, and obviously, being graduated from Ryazan University, you won't be permitted to get a good job in Moscow, Leningrad, from Ryazan. So it's very complex to explain, and certainly capable people finally achieved it. For, as you know, now after the Soviet Union broke down, some 150,000 engineers left Soviet Russia and come to Israel. One of the explanations of this fast development, the technological development of Israel is being explained by the very fact that some 150,000 Jewish engineers, not Jewish specifically, but mostly Jewish, arrived to Israel. So, I agree. It sounds paradox as a paradox, for one hand, but people were very capable, And as you know, Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin asked the Jews come back, for they did understood that Jewish brain is very valuable. It's more valuable than anything else, not oil and not gold. A Jewish brain, for example, Sergey Brin, as you know, was lucky to live Soviet Russia at age 6. I believe his parents were very clever as him, but they come to a level of teachers of physics in math in a high school. No more than that. The moment his Jewish brain was released and come to America, he could establish, develop. So again, what to do, Jews are capable, So you can push them down, keep them down, but finally they somehow try to go up, but not on a level that could fit really their capabilities. Understand what I'm telling? So only coming to the free world, and from America, from the States, Silicon Valley is heavily populated with Soviet engineers and other different places. If they would stay in Soviet Russia, they would be on a different level.
Right. Thank you, Sasha. And it kind of connects to our to another question that Ozzy is asking also, as we are thinking about our campus here. Ozzy, you want to jump in?
Sure.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for a moving talk. So here, the US is a free society, and yet hostility to Jews in Israel persists. Is there any advice that you can tell us about how to battle this hostility?
Please repeat it again. I didn't follow.
So here in America, we live in a free society, unlike the Soviet Union. But nonetheless, there's this pressure against Jews and hostility to Israel. Is there anything you could tell us about how we should deal with this?
The easiest way is to come to Israel. You cannot change it. I read a lot of materials of BDS and all the movements anti-Israel in America. It happened finally in every state. It happened in Germany. It happened in Russia. I am afraid to say it. One day it will happen in America as well. There is no explanation, no logical explanation why they hate us. We are good people, We love everybody. We are democratic. They hate us for being democratic, being liberal, being clever. Nothing will help. So the only way is to assimilate, to obey, to be a slave, a willing slave, or to decide to be a proud man, and not to not to obey, to be yourself, and to develop your real identity, which is Jewish. Why? But then again, being in America, some people say me, when I coming to America, I tell the story of the struggle, and people like Glenn Richter, Rav Avi Weiss, Pamela Cohen, and others, and even Malcolm Hoenlein told me, too bad, nowadays we don't have something like that. He would say in the 70s and the 80s, we had a strong common case that would unite the whole Jewish population in America. And Malcolm Hoenlein, as you know, the president of the organization, American Jewish President, told me, you helped us educate 2 generations of Jewish youth in America. Nowadays, we don't have a common case that would unite us, which is not true, The common case that can unite the whole Jews in America is the struggle for Israel, to defend Israel, to stand strong for Israel. For you can believe what in a dangerous situation is Israel right now. I cannot understand how you American Jews can sit back and don't do anything. If I would be on your place, I would demonstrate and protest every day in the streets of America. Stop treating this way Israel. Israel, a free country, gives freedom to other people. As we evidenced, the friendship with Emirates just illustrates that the Arabs start understanding that it is a benefit that they have in the midst of the wilderness, the independent democratic state of Israel that educates and influences everybody, teaches people start thinking different. You have to support us. You have to fight for us. It's your duty, until you are in America. And, when I come after the prison, 11 years of the prison to America, I was somehow angry with Soviet Jews that we fought for their freedom, and instead they would go to America. I felt myself being betrayed, but now I change it. I thought, okay, it's really everybody's decision. You like to be in America, it's okay with me. You succeed in America, you got education, you got good jobs, I'm glad with it. I love every Jew in every place, but you have your duty, it is your obligation to stand strong for Israel, for it's the source of your success. If it wouldn't be for us, if there Chas v'Sholom wouldn't be Israel, you will be in different situation at all. Don't be afraid, as we were not afraid in Soviet Russia to fight for being Jewish. Don't be afraid and speak out loudly. And just to mention, I read the materials of BDS. It is all built on total ignorance and falsification. To start, begin your activities for Israel in, I believe, the most, you are Hillel, you are involved in academic activities, find real statistics, not something blow up stories. There is statistics that shows altogether 100% that all the lies, that all the information of BDS being falsified. And I can understand how the committee academical board can tolerate the falsification. If so, Professor Genak is in physics. Imagine that somebody would invent something that doesn't, has nothing in connection with reality. The whole world will protest. But they invented that we are apartheid. It's ridiculous. I have my pharmacist close to me, an Arab. I love him much, for he gives me medicines without checking. We have Arab doctors in hospitals here in Israel, and we have one of the ruling parties in the Knesset is an Arab party. They dictate. I am the minority. I am in a position. They are leading the state. To accuse it in apartheid. It's like people lost their brains, stop thinking logically. Just look in the papers, check statistics, everything became obvious. And it is our duty, your duty, to collect information and to widespread and to make everybody understand. I don't believe that it will stop anti-Semitism. For anti-Semitism and the hatred of Jews is not logical. You can, I had one example that I was a youngster in a factory in Russia. I told a friend, a Russian electrician, that soon it will be Pesach and we shall eat matzah. So this Russian man told me, I know you add blood in your matzahs. It will believe me. I know it is not true. And he answered me, whatever you would tell, I know that it is true. Nothing can help. They hate us. They are ready to invent all kinds of lies. Nothing will help. But still, fight against their lies with facts, statistics, academically, scientifically. It's obvious.
Thank you, Yosef. Those are powerful words to finish our amazing session. We want to be in your shadows, fighters like you were for so many decades, and like Glenn was for the Soviet Jewry and continues to be. So we're very lucky to welcome and to thank you, Glenn Richter and Yosef Mendelevich, for being here with us, the Hillel students. Thank you, are excited to have learned with you and have been proud to be in your presence. CAFI members, the members of CUNY Alliance for Inclusion, will continue the fight that you talk about. And
Am Israel Chai. Продолжайте бороться. Правда за нами. Мы победим.
Thank you so much, friends. Thank you very much. We'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye, friends. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye. See you, friends. Bye-bye. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Thank you. Спасибо большое. Спасибо всем. Спасибо. До встречи.